from being a victim to being a survivor, because we fear that if someone remains a victim, it may affect that person, may affect actually 4 generations after that person. Who knows, the people we are seeing today as cruel people, people who are actually committing other crimes, even more serious crimes like killing their husbands, it could be that they were victims and they never healed from that. So we're just getting a cycle of people who are victims and they become accused persons. Then we are looking at them like accused persons, when in actual fact, it is a social problem. It is not a legal problem, it's social. So access to justice for women and girls is therefore not a single intervention. It's a chain. It's a chain, and the chain has to be strong all the way. When one point is weak, the whole chain breaks and becomes useless. So why scaling up investment matters, or maybe I could call it the cost of underinvestment. We often speak about the moral case for investing in women and girls, but I want to say that there is also another case I want to make, that there is a compelling governance and economic case to make, because Right Honorable Speaker spoke about it, even Lady Justice spoke about it. When women and girls can't access justice, violence goes unreported, it goes unpunished, and what does that create? Impunity. Perpetuating cycles of abuse, and then land and inheritance disputes will leave women economically poor. And workplace harassment and discrimination persist, limiting women's participation in the economy. So there's a governance issue, there's an economic issue as well. It is not just a moral issue. And of course, when that happens, the trust in the state institutions will erode. No one believes us. They will say, even if you take the case, no one will believe you. The courts will never judge in your favor. No one will listen to you. So what do? Let's just sit and have a resign. You can imagine having a situation where no one comes to court. Then they will take the law into their hands. And that's not what we want, because Uganda is not a lawless country. Underinvestment in access to justice, it has ripple effects. It burdens the health system because you have so many people sick. It also undermines education outcomes. It also increases poverty. And of course, the most obvious one is social cohesion is totally eroded. So in that sense, every shilling invested in making justice accessible to women and girls, it's not a cost. Let's not look at it as a cost. I'm looking at it as a preventive investment that we make for social stability of our country. So scaling up investment, therefore, is about shifting from being reactive to being proactive. The institutions, the office of the DPP, let's not wait to go to do in theater, after it has happened, then we swing into action. Let's do preventive as well. That's what scaling up does. That we build systems that deter abuse, that resolve disputes early, so that we restore dignity to this girl, to this woman. Where should scaled up investment be directed to? Where should we direct it? I want to suggest actually 4 priority areas. You may add others. The first one I want to add to is frontline justice services. This is where most women and girls go first to. That we must be able to actually invest and prioritize gender desks at the police posts. Let this desk be managed by women, so that the girls and women can be free to talk, to tell their story. No offense to the men, by the way, in the house. No offense to the men, because actually in this whole thing, we need the men more. We need the men to tell our story, to be able to tell the other men that man up, please, because we need respect for the woman, for the girl. So we need the men. So the men in the house, we respect you and we need you in this journey. Frontline justice services. where most women and girls, of course, encounter justice, the justice system. Let's have them functional. Let's have them resourced. Training for frontline officers so that they handle these cases with gender-sensitive lenses, so that they don't shout at this child and say, why are you talking, looking down? Just, are you telling me the truth? Because that's what they fear. They fear for you to say, are you really telling the truth? And then they will shut up and they will not speak again. And you will tell them, go out because I have a lot of work. I am not here all day to wait for you. We need training for the people under these people. We need transport and facilitation for probation and welfare, really, officers, and court user-friendly officers. And of course, an environment, child-friendly rooms where you have children who are coming to testify. Let them have the toys. We used to ask the girls, you show to court, where did the man put his penis? And then the girl has to show, you can imagine. But now we have tried to really not to traumatize the young girls. We got dolls, a male doll and a female doll. And you tell the child, so that it is not done on her. She uses the dolls and say, tell us what the other uncle did to you. Then she will get the doll very easily. And she will just think, you just think she's playing. And they do that. So those are the user-friendly, exactly environment that we want to create. If the first encounter is actually dismissive or hostile for these girls and women, they will shut up. They will never return. The second I want us to look at is the legal aid. Madam Speaker has already spoken to that, and even Honorable Lady Justice Catherine Bamangere. Legal aid and community-based justice. We need the legal aid. For many women and girls, the law is so distant, by the way, so distant and intimidating. So legal aid bridges that gap. So scaling up investment in state-supported legal aid, we could have a legal aid law in place. We could have paralegal programs. We can also have community legal education because these things happen in the community. Let's talk to the women that when you leave your children, when you're going to the market the whole day, and you leave your child with that Uncle John, whom you trust so much, that's the time that your child is defiled. So we need community-based mechanisms, which are properly, of course, linked to the formal systems, so that we can have this handled at that lower level. The third one I want to suggest is justice sector infrastructure and case management delays. Please invest in more courts, especially courts in undeserved areas. We are now, I think we are not all over the country as yet, but we need to go there. We need adequate staffing. Of course, we need technology so that the women don't have to come to court physically. They can testify wherever they are. The fourth one, which is normally not so much focused on, but I think is so important, is data monitoring and accountability. We cannot improve what we cannot measure. So we need to have proper data so that when we come, we have segregated data on case reporting, progression, how many cases are reported of gender-based violence, of sexual abuse, how many are reported, how long do they take in the system, and then what kind of sentences are given by the courts. Do the sentences speak to the seriousness of the offense? A child of 3 years is defiled, and the person is found guilty, and the person is given, when the maximum is death, and someone is given only 5 years. What are we telling the community? That defilement is not very serious, even if Parliament has put the death penalty as the maximum. So we need that. We need feedback mechanisms for court users because this data is essential for Parliament's oversight role and evidence-based budgeting. because then you're going to be budgeting in the dark. I go to the role of Parliament and the women leaders. This room is uniquely positioned because it will translate commitment to change. As female members of Parliament, your influence spans. It is so expansive. You're going from legislation, you have budgeting, you have oversight, and then you actually you go to the voters and you interact with them. So in legislation, you are actually responsive. They are responsive to the lived realities of women and girls. In budgeting, you advocate for adequate and targeted funding for women and girls, for justice interventions that actually target women and girls. Your oversight role, Madam Speaker, asking the hard questions about judiciary. Last time you came here, we actually offered you this amount of money to have cases of defilement, cases of rape, cases of domestic violence handled expeditiously. Give us the results. Ask us those hard questions. Did we divert that money? And of course, you also have representation. You amplify the voices of these women and girls. They don't have this platform, so you're there for them. The female staff of Parliament, on the other hand, of course, shape our institutions function day to day. You know, the staff of Parliament, you're the one who can either, what you do internally, if you do the right things internally, even externally, you'll do the right things because it mirrors out. So you are also important. Madam Speaker said, most of the time you're staying here. When committees stay here until 8 p.m., you also stay here until 8 p.m. So you are very important in that regard. So bridging policy and practice. This one is so important because our greatest challenges, I think we have the laws, we have the policies, we have the institutions, but the access to justice for girls and women still eludes them. The women still feel very, very neglected and very far away. And as Uganda, we have made commendable strides in the legal, in the policy frameworks. Why does it still feel distant for the girl? Why does it feel distant for the woman? We should close this gap. We should close this gap by collaboration between Parliament, between judiciary, between the executive, between even civil society. We should continue the dialogue between policymakers and frontline service providers. We should have the willingness to pilot, to learn, to adapt interventions that are working, that are not working. We do away with those ones. And of course, scaling up investment is therefore accompanied by also scaling up learning for us who are in the legal profession. And for you, members of Parliament, already Lady Justice told you about, there's no school to learn how to become a member of Parliament, just like there's no school to learn to become a judge. So we have to learn on the job. I want to get into the closing reflections. I want to conclude with 3 reflections and maybe 2 questions. You may answer them because Madam Speaker already spoke to one of them. The first reflection I want to share with you is that access to justice for women and girls is not charity. It's a constitutional promise. And we are well placed in this, under this tent, we are well placed to deliver that promise to every girl and every woman in Uganda. The second reflection I want to leave with you is investment must be people-centered. You know, we sometimes, maybe you also, as you make legislation, and we, as we handle cases, sometimes we may forget and think that we are doing this for there are lives outside this. As you make this legislation, it's going to affect someone and it can affect them forever. So even as we handle these cases, so investment must be people-centered, not institution-centered. Don't think about the judiciary, that we are giving a lot of money to the judiciary. No, say you're giving money so that investment on access to justice for women and girls in Uganda is actually prioritized. Don't think you're giving it to because if you think about that, then we lose the point. That's the second reflection. The third one, sustainable change definitely requires resources, human, financial, and everything, and political will. 2 questions I'm going to leave with you. 1, how can Parliament more deliberately use its budget and your oversight powers to actually ensure that investment in access to justice for women and girls reaches the last girl, the last woman, deep in the village, in Kisoro, in Karamoja? How can you do that? Number 2, and I said deliberately, use it. Number 2, what practical shift, whether in law, whether in policy, that's what I'm saying, the Right Honorable Speaker already spoke to that, or an institutional practice that we can commit to this year. Today, she already said it, that we can commit, that will tangibly improve the experience of the woman, of the girl seeking justice in Uganda, so that we just don't wait for the Women's Day to celebrate it, because access to justice for women and girls, or offenses that are committed against the woman, against the girl, doesn't happen only on Women's Day. It happens every day, it happens every minute, it happens throughout. So that we have something in Parliament that is speaking to that, so that the woman at the village, the girl in the village, knows that they may not have this platform, but they have voices who are there to speak for them. I thank you so much. I thank you, Madam Honorable Speaker, for inviting us